I used to think the harshest sound in the world was a slam door. It isn't. It's the soft slide of a manila envelope across your kitchen table at 6:12 a.m. when your daughter still sleeps with her stuffed fox and the coffee hasn't finished brewing. My name is Noah Carter, and by the time the machine hissed and clicked itself quiet, my wife had already told me she wanted everything. She didn't raise her voice. Ava never raised her voice. She just tapped the papers with a neat red nail and said, "Sign, Noah. It'll be easier for everyone." Everyone, I later learned, meant her. We've been married 12 years. 2 kids, Mason, 9, who was born with a wicked curveball and a soft heart, and Chloe, 6, who likes to draw family portraits with too many stars. Our 2-story colonial sits on a cul-de-sac in Westville, New Jersey, where maple leaves clog the gutters in October, and you wave even if you don't know your neighbor's name. I manage projects for a mid-sized construction firm out of Newark. Long hours, site visits, late-night calls when concrete decided not to cure on schedule. We weren't rich, but the mortgage got paid, the minivan ran, and every December we put inflatable reindeer on the lawn because Chloe loved them. I thought that counted for something. Ava used to be a preschool aide. After Chloe, she stayed home. The plan, our plan, was she'd go back once both kids were in school full-time. Instead, she started volunteering more at the Community Arts Center downtown. A new photography program needed parents, she'd said. She was gone 3 nights a week. On Saturdays, she had workshops. On Sundays, donor brunches. When I asked about it, she smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "You told me to find something for me." I did. I didn't realize something would replace us. The morning of the envelope, I tried to swallow air around the stone in my throat. "Ava, what is this?" She tilted her head like she was considering a painting. "It's a petition. Irreconcilable differences. My attorney's name is on the first page. You'll see the custody proposal. The house stays with me. Stability for the kids. You'll have alternate weekends, every other holiday, and 2 non-consecutive weeks in summer. Also, spousal support. I left my career for our family." "I thought you were going back next fall." She slid her phone into her purse. Plans change. She glanced toward the stairs where little feet thumped. "Keep your voice down. Don't make this ugly." Ugly arrived anyway. By lunch, her parents knew. By dinner, 3 of our couple friends had texted to check in on Ava. None of them asked me anything. The story traveled faster than truth. Noah works too much. Noah's cold. Noah forgot anniversaries in school plays. I didn't. I have the photos to prove it. The version that never made it into the group chat was the one with the late-night selfies from the Arts Center's donor liaison, a man with a white smile and a linen blazer named Tyler Grant. I didn't know his name yet. I only knew that when Ava's phone lit the dark at 12:47 a.m., the way she smiled at it wasn't how you smile at a school parent committee. She started sleeping with her screen face down. She started wearing perfume to volunteer meetings. She bought new dresses and called them sponsor appropriate. She teased Mason about my old crew neck sweatshirts in front of people. And it took me a week to realize she was rehearsing me into the part I would play in court. When the first hearing date arrived, Ava wore navy and pearls. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Colleen with eyebrows like drawn swords, took my measure like a contractor in a room he intends to gut. My attorney, Elena Brooks, touched my sleeve and whispered, "Breathe. We're not arguing merits today, just temporary orders." The temporary orders gave Ava the house and primary physical custody, pending final adjudication, which is legal for, let's keep life the way she wants it until we decide if she gets it forever. I got alternate weekends. I got a schedule written in a tone that made me feel like a visitor to my children's lives. After the hearing, Ava stood just outside the courthouse doors where the sunlight pooled gold. She didn't look at me when she said, "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I almost asked, "Harder for who?" I didn't. A man learns to measure his words when everything he says might be Exhibit B. That night, Mason cried in the upstairs hall because the visitation calendar taped to the fridge looked like a game he couldn't win. I sat on the floor beside him and traced the boxes with my finger. "See these? The blue ones are mine. That means baseball in the park and pancakes on Sundays." "What about the green ones?" he sniffed. "Those are Mom's. You'll do crafts and watch those cooking shows you like." He stared at the taped paper like it had stolen something from him. "Why can't it be all the colors together?" "Because sometimes adults make promises we don't know we can keep," I didn't say. "Because sometimes love is a house you think you built on bedrock until the spring thaw shows it was clay all along." I kissed the top of his head and didn't answer. 2 weeks later, I learned the donor liaison's name. Tyler Grant introduced himself to me at the Arts Center's fall fundraiser, like I hadn't already noticed him in the background of 3 of Ava's Instagram stories. He had the easy confidence of a man whose suits were tailored and whose problems were solved by people paid to say, "Certainly." "Tyler," he said, extending a hand, "I've heard so much about you. Big project manager, right? We're lucky to have Ava. She's the glue around here." She laughed a little too brightly. "Tyler!" I took his hand. His grip was warm. He did not look at my wife the way a married woman should be looked at by a man who isn't her husband. He looked at her like a room he already owned. On the drive home, Ava stared out the passenger window like the trees had something to say she wanted me to hear. "You embarrassed me tonight. You were stiff. People asked if you were okay." "I'm getting divorced. I'm not auditioning for prom king." "You don't have to be cruel. You don't have to be a stranger." We didn't speak for the rest of the ride. We didn't speak when we brushed our teeth or when we turned off the lamps. The house made small settling noises around us, like even the wood had opinions. A week later, Ava moved the last of my things into the guest room until the court finalizes. She said it in the tone you use when you ask someone to pass the salt. Elena called me the next morning. "Noah, we need to talk about expectations," she said. "Colleen will paint you as the disengaged earner. We need to counter with your dad role, coaches, school pickups, bedtime routines. Do you have documentation?" "I have pictures, emails with teachers, medical bills. I have the login to Mason's baseball team app." "Good. And Noah," Elena paused, then decided to be a person before a lawyer. "If there's anything about Ava's extracurriculars, now would be the time." I stared at the guest room ceiling where the fan made the same slow rounds it had for 12 years. "I have a feeling," I said. "I don't have proof." "Feelings are not evidence," Elena said softly. "Be patient. Be clean.
Don't text her anything you don't want the judge to read out loud. That night, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. A photograph appeared. A grainy frame from a distance. Ava and Tyler on the art center's back staircase, her hand on his chest, his lips too close to hers to be explained by lighting or angles. A second text followed. You don't know me. My sister works there. She says your wife isn't just volunteering. I typed and deleted 3 responses before I just wrote, "Thank you." I didn't forward the photo to anyone. Not yet. I put it in a folder in the cloud with a name that would mean nothing to anyone but me. Plumb line. On my job sites, we use a plumb line to find true vertical. It's a string with a weight at the bottom. Gravity doesn't negotiate. It tells you if your wall lies. Over the next month, life slid into a shape that fit only if you didn't look too closely. I woke up in the guest room to a house that smelled of Ava's new perfume. I learned to pack Mason's mitt and Chloe's crayons into a go bag for the blue days on the calendar. I kept receipts. I kept my temper. Ava's parents, Donna and Gerald, perfected the art of the chilly hello. Gerald, who used to ask me to help him install shelves or move the grill, now offered me nothing but a look that said I had failed at an exam he'd never assigned. Donna called Ava brave in Facebook comments. At Thanksgiving, we went to her parents' house like we always did because the temporary orders said the kids should keep traditions. I carved the turkey while Tyler's name sat between us like a place card no one acknowledged. When dessert was served, Donna said, "Ava dear, after this is over, you and the kids will be so much more settled." I set down the knife. After this is over, the kids will have parents who don't make plans without telling them first. Ava gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't start," she said. I wasn't starting. I was already finishing. 3 days later, I met a man named Caleb Ortiz in a diner off Route 22. He used to be a cop in Elizabeth before he decided he liked sleeping more than the night shift let him. He became a licensed private investigator because people lie, but cameras don't. Caleb listened without interrupting. He stirred his coffee like it had secrets. "You want me to follow your wife," he said finally. "You want me to get your vertical." I nodded. "I need facts. If I show up in court with suspicions, I lose my kids." He didn't argue. He slid a retainer agreement across the Formica table. "Text me her schedule, addresses, vehicles. I'll start with the Arts Center." The first week, Caleb sent me nothing but timestamps. The second week, he sent me patterns. The third week, he sent me photographs. Ava leaving the Arts Center arm in arm with Tyler at 11:23 p.m. Ava entering Tyler's building in Montclair at 11:41 p.m. Ava leaving at 6:08 a.m. in the same dress she wore the night before. He didn't send me the one photo I most wanted, the one that would burn away any deniability left like a match to paper. He didn't need to. Judges don't require nudity to recognize an affair. They require a preponderance. Caleb arranged the weights until the scale could not pretend to be even. I collected other weights. Bank statements showed a new credit card in Ava's maiden name with charges at a boutique hotel in Asbury Park. The Arts Center's donor ledger, which is public with enough digging, showed contributions processed under Tyler's signature on the same dates as Ava's workshops. In the evenings, when the house was quiet and the blue squares were ours, Mason practiced pitching into a net in the garage while I called Elena on speakerphone. Chloe colored on cardboard boxes with markers and told me our family was now 2 houses with a secret doorway. We can go through whenever we miss each other. Only we know the path. I told her I loved her and that the doorway was real. I did not tell her it would be guarded by court orders and adults in suits. One night, Elena said, "We can do this 2 ways, Noah. We can spring it at trial and let the shock do the work, or we can negotiate from power now." What gets me my kids? Shock helps. So does a clean record. Don't date. Don't drink and post. Keep your receipts. Keep your routines. Judges like routines. They believe children do too. I thought of the calendar on the fridge. I thought of Mason's eyes tracing the squares. "We'll give them a routine," I said. "One that doesn't change when a man in a linen blazer texts at midnight."
December bled into January. Snow feathered the sidewalks. On my weekends, I made pancakes in the shape of baseballs and foxes. On the green days, the house was too quiet. I learned the precise sounds of empty, the heater kicking on, a neighbor's car in reverse, the click of our mailbox shutting. Ava texted logistics like my children were parcels. Pickup moved to 5:30. Mason forgot his homework at my place. Can you bring it? She never said please. She never asked how the kids were during my days. She sent a photo of Chloe at the arts center holding a paintbrush, cheeks pink with pride. Mason wasn't in the frame. At night, I wrote everything down. In a notebook Elena told me to keep. Times, exchanges, missed calls. Mason's stomach ache when the schedule flipped. Chloe's new habit of lining up her stuffed animals on the guest bed on my nights and the master bed on hers, as if she was trying to teach the foxes which house they belonged to. I stopped going to the gym we used to share because couples we knew pretended not to see me. I joined the one on Broad Street where nobody said my name. I learned to lift quietly. I learned that grief can live in your forearms and leave only when your hands shake around a barbell. One Friday, Ryan, my oldest friend from high school and the only person who hadn't melted into silence, showed up with 2 pizzas and 2 six-packs. He put both on the counter but opened only the root beer. "Elena would kill you," he said. "I Googled how to not lose your kids in New Jersey. Number 1, don't be stupid." "Good to know Google's still free," I said. He looked around the house like it was a crime scene, and he was trying to imagine the life that had been here before. "You're doing the right thing?" he asked, not exploding. "I want to," I said, "every day." I told him about Caleb, about the photos and the ledger, and the pattern that proved more than any confession ever would. I told him about the calendar and the foxes and the way Mason's fastball was getting faster because he had learned to throw in garages, which are really just rooms for practicing leaving. Ryan chewed, swallowed. "When do you pull the pin?" I said, "When it matters, when a judge is watching." He nodded like that was the answer he'd brought for me to find. "Then we'll get you there." On an off day in late January, Elena filed our amended response with attachments. We didn't allege adultery like a headline. We laid out facts, overnight stays, financial entanglements, the sudden expansion of a volunteer role into a paid one Tyler had signed off on himself. We're not here to punish her for who she loves. We're here to show what she's willing to do to win. The next morning, Colleen's office called to cancel mediation. We don't believe mediation would be productive at this time, which is lawyer for, we didn't expect you to have ammunition. 2 days later, Ava texted, "Can we talk without lawyers?" I stared at the screen until the iMessage dots gave up. About what? About being reasonable. About what's best for Mason and Chloe. I'm listening. You can keep the Subaru. I'll keep the house. We'll do 60-40 on custody. You can have every other Christmas. I leaned my head back against the couch and laughed the sound that had no humor in it. "We'll let the judge decide," I wrote. "See you at the hearing." The dots blinked, stopped, blinked again. "You're not the man I married," she sent. "Neither are you," I typed. Then deleted. "I'm being the father our kids need." On my next blue Saturday, Mason pitched to me in the park in finger-stinging air. He missed high, then low, then found the pocket of my mitt with a smack that felt like a small victory. Chloe built a snow fox and named her Marigold. "She's brave," she said. "She guards the secret doorway." "Does she?" I asked. Chloe nodded, earnest. "She lets only the good people through." When I tucked them in, Mason asked, "Do judges like baseball?" I said, "Some do." "Do they like dads?" I said, "They like truth." He thought about that, then pulled his blanket up to his chin. "Then you'll win," he said, like it was the most obvious math in the world. I kissed his forehead and went downstairs and let myself cry in the laundry room where the hum of the dryer could pretend it was something else.
In February, the Arts Center hosted a winter showcase. Mason didn't want to go. "That place smells like paint and lies," he said, and I didn't correct him. But Chloe's class had clay animals on display, and her fox, Marigold's cousin, she said, had a spot on the front table. We went during my hours because the calendar, even when you hate it, runs the clock. Inside, the walls wore photographs of city streets and faces of people captured mid-laugh. Ava hovered near the donor plaques with a tablet in her hands, looking important. Tyler stood a step behind her, looking like he owned the light that fell on both of them. Ava's smile was automatic when she spotted us, but it faltered when she saw I wasn't alone. Elena had suggested I invite Donna and Gerald when events fell on my time. "Document your inclusiveness," she'd said. "Judges like it when you try." The invitation had forced Ava to weigh optics. She smiled harder. "Chloe," Ava crouched to hug our daughter, "your fox is beautiful." Chloe beamed. "Marigold's cousin is brave too." She stood and brushed invisible lint from her dress. "Noah," she said, "thank you for bringing them." Tyler extended his hand as if this were the first time. "We meet again, 1-800-BIG Project Manager," he laughed, like I should understand we were friends. I looked at his hand and then at the camera mounted in the corner that Caleb had told me existed. I shook his hand and smiled for the lens. "Tyler," I said, "I'm glad the Arts Center has such dedicated donors." His smile thinned. "We do what we can for the community." "Me too. Mostly for mine." On the drive home, Mason, who had been quiet, said from the back seat, "I don't like that man." "Which man?" I asked. "The one who stands too close to Mom. He looks at you like he thinks you're dumb." "He can think whatever he wants. Thinking doesn't make walls straight." The week before the hearing, Caleb sent me his last report. It was thorough without being cruel. "Patterns, not poison," he'd said when we first sat down. The report included a calendar with dots marking overnights, screen grabs of door entry logs at Tyler's building, and a map with lines so clean even a tired judge could understand what they meant. Elena reviewed the file in her office while I sat on a chair that had seen 100 men try to hold themselves together. "This is good," she said. "This is very good." She tapped a page with a pen. "And this? The Art Center payroll showing a stipend dispersed by Ava, signed by Tyler? That's your anchor." "What about the kids?" I asked. "How do we make a judge see Mason's calendar and Chloe's foxes?" "We show your notebook, we show your receipts, we show the routine you've built and the flexibility you've extended. We don't trash their mother. We don't have to. Her choices will speak." "Will she lose them?" The words came out before I could stop them. I don't want to take their mother from them. I just want to stop being treated like a visitor." Elena's face softened. "We're not asking for exile. We're asking for primary custody with generous parenting time. Courts reward parents who make it about the children, not about winning." I nodded. Winning had become a word I didn't trust. I wanted something steadier. I wanted bedtime and waffles and the knowledge that if Mason forgot his homework at my house, he could just come back, because this was his house too. That weekend, on a green Sunday, Ava texted that she'd be dropping the kids late. "Traffic," she said. When she arrived, her hair was still salon smooth and her lipstick precise. Tyler sat in the driver's seat of the car I had bought. He didn't look at me. He looked at his phone like that was where the world lived now. Ava walked the kids to the door. "Say goodbye to your father." She liked civility was a chore she assigned. Chloe hugged me so hard my ribs protested. Mason stood with his hands in his pockets, watching Tyler through the windshield the way boys watch something they hope isn't a lesson. "See you Wednesday, Dad," he said, voice tight. "Wednesday, blue square." We'd started coding our days out loud like it was a team chant. He smiled, small but real. After they left, I stood in the doorway until their taillights disappeared. I went back inside and put their drawings on the fridge and their shoes in the basket by the mudroom bench. I folded Mason's hoodie and left it on the stair rail so I could see it from the kitchen. I made a list for court. Do not talk about Tyler unless asked. Do not talk about feeling betrayed. Talk about coaching. Talk about bedtime. Talk about pancakes. The night before the hearing, it snowed. Not a blizzard, just enough to turn the world into something that looked clean. I ironed a shirt that didn't need ironing because my hands wanted to do something that made lines behave. I put my notebook and Caleb's report in a briefcase Ryan had loaned me because he said men with briefcases look like they came to work. At 2 a.m., my phone lit up. A text from Ava. "We could fix this, you know. We were good once." I stared at the words. Baby, in some more old photograph or a memory that hadn't learned it was dangerous yet. She was right. We had been good. We had painted Mason's room together the night before I took him home from the hospital, yellow because we didn't know if he'd be a boy who ran or a girl who climbed. We had danced in the kitchen with Chloe in a sling while pasta boiled over. We had been a we, and we had treated it like a living thing. "We can't fix it by lying," I wrote. "We can only fix it by being honest about what it is now." The dots blinked. "You're cruel," came the reply. I put the phone face down and went to the window. The snow kept falling, like it had never learned any other way.
Stood again. Formalities outlined the battlefield. Colleen went first. She was good. She painted Ava as a mother who had sacrificed, a woman anchored to a home that steadied the children while her father traveled from site to site with a phone that never slept. She slid photographs across to the clerk, Chloe holding a paintbrush, Mason at a school concert, standing beside Ava because I had been working late. Elena didn't object to the photos. She let them sit there like apples on a teacher's desk. When it was her turn, she rose and spoke without theatrics. "Your Honor," she said, "this is a case about stability.
We don't dispute that Mrs. Carter loves her children. We don't dispute that she has attended to many of their needs. We do contest the picture painted about Mr. Carter's involvement. She lifted a thin binder. We will show calendars, emails, and testimony establishing Mr. Carter as a hands-on parent. Proceed, the judge said. Elena called me first. My legs felt wooden as I walked to the witness stand. I told the truth. I told it slowly, because speed sounds like fear. I described mornings making lunches, afternoons at the park. The Saturday I built a pitching mound out of plywood and clay in the backyard because Mason had a tournament and the field was iced over. I talked about Chloe's foxes and bedtime stories and the way she liked her nightlight to glow just enough to make shadows look like friendly animals. Colleen cross-examined me. Mr. Carter, your work requires long hours, does it not? It requires flexible hours. When I'm on a pour, I'm there. When I'm not, I'm home. We made that balance work for years. Have you ever missed a school event? Yes, and I've also left a site with concrete going off because Chloe had a fever. She moved to money. You earn more than your wife, correct? Yes. Substantially more? Yes. So you agree that spousal support. My wife and I agreed that she would return to work when both children were in school full-time. I supported that. Plans changed. Whose plans? Ava's. She let that hang, then shifted. You've made allegations in your filings about Mrs. Carter's relationship with a donor. I've presented facts. And Elena stood. Your Honor, we'd like to move into evidentiary exhibits. The judge inclined his head. You may. Elena approached the clerk with our binder, the one labeled Plumb Line. She walked the court through Caleb's report like a map. Not accusations, coordinates, entry logs, timestamps, the stipend authorization Tyler had signed for nights she'd told me she was volunteering, the boutique hotel charges, the photographs taken from public sidewalks that showed my wife leaving a building in the morning wearing the night before. Ava's face drained by degrees like a sky learning it would rain. She glanced at Colleen. Colleen's jaw tightened once, which is the lawyer equivalent of a gasp. Elena kept her tone even. Your Honor, our point is not to punish Mrs. Carter for this relationship. Our point is that her testimony in filings and in this courtroom has been inconsistent with the facts. The question before the court is where the children will experience stability and truth. Colleen objected to a photograph as prejudicial. The judge overruled. He leaned forward, hands tented. Mrs. Carter, he said finally, do you wish to address any of this? Ava stood as if pulled by strings. She coughed, found a register that used to work on me. I made mistakes. Noah was never home. I was lonely. The arts center needed me. Elena didn't pounce. She just asked, do you deny spending the nights indicated in Respondent's Exhibit D? Ava looked at the chart. She didn't deny it. She said, I didn't think it mattered. And the courtroom exhaled a sound that wasn't quite a sound, just the awareness that some sentences undo themselves as they arrive. When testimony ended, Judge Hargrove asked both counsel for brief closings. Colleen spoke about maternal bonds and familiar bedrooms and continuity. Elena spoke about credibility and routines and a father who had built a stable pattern in the middle of upheaval without poisoning his children against their mother. I stared at the wood grain of the counsel table while my heart tried to break free from its ribs. I thought of Mason's question, do judges like dads? And of Chloe's fox guarding the doorway only good people could pass through. I did not pray exactly, I just wanted gravity to work the way it always does. The judge ruled from the bench. Primary residential custody to the father. The word sounded like a language I had learned as a boy and forgotten until now. Mother to have substantial parenting time on an alternating schedule, including midweek dinner and alternating weekends. The marital home shall remain with Mr. Carter, subject to equitable distribution, to be addressed separately. Spousal support is denied at this time. The court finds that Mrs. Carter's testimony was not credible in several material respects. Ava made a sound like a small animal caught in a trap and then sealed her lips over it. Colleen put a hand on her arm. Human first, advocate second. Elena touched the back of my hand under the table where no one could see. "Breathe," she whispered again. "It's over." It wasn't over. Not the way endings look in movies. There were still forms and schedules and the logistics of a life divided into squares that, if you looked just right, made a picture again. But something had ended, the season where I waited to be believed. Outside the courthouse, snow clung to curbs in shrinking islands. Ryan whooped once, loud enough to bounce off the stone. Elena smiled like a person who allows herself the luxury exactly twice a month. I texted Donna and Gerald to invite them to Sunday dinner with the kids. I copied Ava. Donna replied, "Thank you, Noah. We'll come." Ava wrote nothing.
In the weeks that followed, the house began to sound like itself again. Not the same self. Houses never go back, but a version that knew our names when we came in the door. Mason taped his new practice schedule above the desk in his room and started sleeping through the night again. Chloe moved Marigold the fox between beds for a while, then settled her on the dresser, facing the secret doorway. "She doesn't have to guard as hard now," she told me. "Good people know the path." One afternoon in March, Tyler showed up at Mason's game. He stood alone down the first base line with sunglasses on, the kind of man who believes reflective lenses make him unreadable. Ava was there too, on her side of the bleachers, cheering too loud for a boy who could tell the difference between a voice that loved him and a voice that wanted to be seen. Mason struck out his first at-bat. On his second, he lined a fastball into the gap and slid hard into second. He popped up, dusted his pants, and looked toward our side. He didn't smile. He didn't have to. He knew who had spent winter building a mound in the snow. After the game, Tyler approached with a hand extended, shades in place. "No hard feelings," he said, which is something people say when they've forgotten the definition of feelings. I looked at his hand and then at my son packing his bag with his mother. "There are consequences," I said. "Hard feelings are optional." He removed his hand like a man recalling a memo. "Right," he said, and walked away.
That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the back steps with a beer I didn't finish because Elena's voice still lived in my head. The maple threw a lace of shadows on the lawn. I thought about the day the plumb line stops trembling, that moment when the weight stops swinging and the string tells you the truth. You can build then, not before. I had wanted revenge. Of course I had. I had wanted humiliation and the kind of apology that changes the bones of a person. But standing in the quiet, I understood what I had actually wanted all along. A life that didn't require me to explain myself to my children. A home that didn't ask them to pick a side to sleep on. A routine that made them feel the world had not slid off its hooks. Ava texted occasionally, logistics mostly. Once, "I'm sorry." I typed, "I know," and didn't send it. The apology wasn't mine to accept or reject. It belonged to the part of our life that had already been distributed and filed. On the first day of spring, Chloe found a dandelion in the strip of grass by the mailbox. She blew, and the seeds lifted like 1,000 small possibilities.
Mason looked at me and said, "Coach says if I keep my elbow up, I can add 2 miles per hour by summer." Coach is right. Also the dad who built you a mound. He grinned then, full and easy. Also him. Later, after bedtime, I opened my notebook and wrote the last entry I planned to make. Gravity doesn't argue. Truth holds. Build straight. I closed the cover and slid it into a drawer, not because I planned to forget, but because I finally trusted the walls to stand without me bracing them. People ask me sometimes, in softer ways than the internet ever would, if I'm over it. I tell them the truth. You don't get over losing the story you thought you were in. You learn to tell a better one. I didn't win because a judge liked dads. I won because I stopped shouting at a crooked wall and hung a plumb line instead. Ava once told me I was cruel because I wouldn't pretend anymore. Maybe she believed that. Maybe she needed to. I don't. I tuck my kids in. I iron shirts that don't need ironing when big days come. I make pancakes on blue Sundays. I do small things the straight way, one after another, until a life appears. She took everything she could reach. I kept what you can't steal.